There is a moment, and most people will never experience it, where your entire world flips upside down in 3 seconds flat. Not a car accident. Not a job loss. Something worse. The kind of betrayal that only happens in movies until it happens to you. Mine happened at my own engagement party. And the two people responsible? My best friend of 15 years. And the woman I was about to marry. This is what I did about it. Before I get into this, I want you to understand something about who I am. I am not the kind of person who loses control. I am not emotional. I am not reactive. I am patient. Strategic. And when the two people I trusted most in the world decided to set a fire inside my life, I made sure they were standing in the center of it when it burned to the ground. Stay with me through every second of this story. Because what I planned did not happen overnight. It took weeks of absolute silence and surgical precision. And by the time you finish this video, you are going to understand exactly why karma is not a myth. Marcus and I had been best friends since we were 19 years old. College roommates who stayed inseparable through every major event of each other's lives. His divorce at 26. My father's death at 28. His mother's cancer diagnosis. We were the kind of friends who talked every single day without fail, the kind where you give someone a key to your apartment without thinking twice. I was his groomsman. He was supposed to be mine. For 15 years, I trusted that man with everything I had. Vanessa and I had been together for 3 years when I proposed. 6 months before the engagement party, I spent 4 months choosing the ring. A 2-carat solitaire, platinum band, from a jeweler I visited 9 separate times. I introduced her to Marcus in year 2 of the relationship. They were friendly. Cordial. Marcus was in a serious relationship of his own at the time. Vanessa always seemed a little indifferent toward him if anything. I had absolutely zero reason to question anything. Not one. The engagement party was at a rented venue downtown. 87 guests. Open bar, a photographer I had hired 3 months out, and a photo slideshow of Vanessa and me that I had spent 3 weekends building. I was proud of every detail. Marcus volunteered to handle the vendor coordination and the venue walkthrough. He said he wanted to take something off my plate. I thanked him. I remember thinking how lucky I was to have a friend like that. Looking back now, I know exactly why he needed to know the venue layout. The first 90 minutes were perfect. People were laughing. The bar had a line. Vanessa was radiant. She wore this deep burgundy dress and she was glowing in a way I had never seen before. I remember standing in the corner of the room for one moment, looking out at all the people I loved most in the world, and thinking, this is exactly the life I built. I was genuinely happy. I want you to hold that image in your mind right now, because I am about to destroy it completely. It was around the 90-minute mark when I started noticing small things. Marcus had been gone from the main room longer than made sense. Vanessa had stepped out to, quote, check on the caterer. She had been gone for almost 12 minutes. I glanced around the room. Neither of them was visible. I told myself it was nothing and poured another drink. I went back to talking to my uncle about his boat. But something in my gut, and I have learned over years to listen to that specific feeling, was screaming at a frequency I could not ignore. I excused myself. I did a quiet lap of the entire venue, the terrace, the bar, the side hallway leading to the kitchen. And then I walked toward the back storage corridor that Marcus had pointed out during the venue walkthrough 2 weeks before. The door at the end of it was slightly ajar. Maybe 2 inches open. A thin line of dim light coming through. And as I moved closer, and this is the part of the story I have replayed in my mind more times than I can count, I heard something through that crack that rewired every circuit in my brain. Not voices. Not words. Just sound. Unmistakable sound. I want to be very precise about what I did next. Because this part matters more than any other moment in the story. I did not open the door. I did not say a single word. I stood completely still in that hallway for approximately 30 seconds. I felt the shock move through my body the way cold water moves, top to bottom, immediate and total. And then something shifted inside me. The shock did not turn into rage. It turned into something I have only felt a handful of times in my life, absolute clarity. I turned around. I walked back to the party. I poured myself a drink. I smiled at Vanessa's mother. And I started planning. They both reappeared separately. Marcus came back first, about 12 minutes after I returned to the main room, straightening his jacket and telling someone a story about a phone call he had taken outside. Then Vanessa, 8 minutes later, flushed and smiling, with an explanation about a delayed appetizer tray. I looked them both in the eye over the course of that evening. I smiled. I clinked glasses with Marcus during the toast. I held Vanessa's hand for the photographer. I performed that entire remaining hour of my own engagement party with a composure that I am still, to this day, privately proud of. After the last guest left and Vanessa had gone to sleep, I told her I needed air. I drove to a parking lot near the highway and sat in my car with the engine off for 2 hours and 14 minutes. I opened a note on my phone and I made a list. Not an emotional list, a strategic one. What do I know about Marcus that his employer does not? What do I know about Vanessa that her family has never been told? What financial obligations, professional vulnerabilities, and social leverage do I hold over both of them, leverage that neither of them has ever considered a threat because they thought I would never use it? By the time I started the engine and drove home, I had 19 specific items on that list. And one decision: I would not confront either of them until the damage was already irreversible. Over the next 4 days, I did something that would make most people deeply uncomfortable. I systematically investigated the two people I had been closest to. I accessed every shared account that gave me any visibility. I pulled call logs from our shared phone plan. Vanessa and I were on a family plan. I found the first message thread between them dated 8 months, 12 days before my engagement party. 8 months. I want you to absorb that number. The engagement party was not the beginning of what they were doing. It was not even close to the beginning. They had been carrying on for 8 solid months while I was planning the proposal, selecting the ring, and building what I believed was the rest of my life. Here is what the records showed me in those 4 days. Marcus had been with Vanessa when she went to look at wedding venues. She told me she went with her sister. He knew the exact diamond cut I had chosen for the ring because Vanessa had photographed it and sent it to him. He was present at the proposal dinner, sitting at the same table, and he embraced me afterward and said, and I am quoting from memory here, "You deserve this, brother." And the messages between the two of them from that night, I will not read them aloud here. But I will tell you that the word pathetic appeared in that conversation. And it was not directed at either of them. At this point, most people collapse or explode. I called in sick to work for 3 days and I sat with the full picture. And I constructed a plan with 4 distinct phases. Phase 1 was financial. Phase 2 was professional. Phase 3 was social. Phase 4 was what I privately referred to as the exit, the final move that would ensure that when everything came down, it came down completely and publicly, with no ambiguity about why. I want to walk you through each phase. Because the detail is where this story lives. Marcus had borrowed $22,000 from me over 15 years of friendship. Never formally. A car repair here, a business venture that went nowhere there, a deposit on an apartment when he was between leases. It was money I had genuinely never expected back. It was friend money. 3 days after the party, he received a formal certified legal demand letter drafted by an attorney I retained the morning after I made my list, requesting full repayment of $22,000 within 30 days, with accrued interest. He called me 11 times that day. I answered 0 calls. Let the clock run. Marcus was a licensed architect at a mid-size firm. I knew his managing partner socially. We had sat at the same table at 2 separate charity events over the years. I also possessed something that Marcus had handed me carelessly over years of venting, emails in which he described, in his own words, how he billed personal expenses to client accounts as a way of supplementing what he felt was inadequate compensation from the firm. Small amounts individually. Collectively, based on what I could calculate from what he had described, it was not small at all. I forwarded those emails to the managing partner. No cover note. No explanation. Just forwarded them, subject line unchanged. Vanessa's family did not know about a specific chapter of her past, a previous long-term relationship that had ended with a documented restraining order against her, a pattern of behavior she had carefully buried before we met. She had told me about it in year 1. I had held it privately for 2 years, protected her from it, because I believed in her and because people deserve the grace of growth. I stopped believing in extending her that grace on the night of my engagement party. Her mother received a letter, factual, documented, attached to public court records that are available to anyone who looks, within 10 days of the party. This is the move I am most deliberately proud of, not for its cruelty, because I do not believe it was cruel, but for its simplicity. I had 87 guests at that engagement party. Within 16 days of the event, every single one of them received a handwritten card from me. The card read, "The engagement has been called off." If you would like to understand why, I would encourage you to ask Marcus and Vanessa to explain what they were doing together in the back storage corridor at approximately 9:47 p.m. on the evening of the party. I wish you all nothing but the best. I signed everyone by hand. The response was faster than I had anticipated. Within 48 hours of the cards arriving, I had received 51 messages from mutual friends, from family members, from colleagues I had not spoken to in months. I did not respond to any of them. But I want to tell you about one specific phone call that I did take. Marcus's mother called me on a Thursday afternoon. She was crying. She told me she had tried to raise him better than this. I told her, gently, that he had borrowed $22,000 from me over the years, and that she might want to ask him specifically about the client billing situation at the firm. There was a long silence on the line. Then she said, "I am so sorry." And she hung up. Marcus was placed on administrative leave from the architecture firm within 6 days of receiving my forwarded emails. The internal investigation that followed did not find $40,000 in irregularities, it found closer to $63,000 over 4.5 years. He was terminated. His professional license was flagged pending review. The certified legal demand letter matured at 30 days with no payment received, triggering the next step of the legal process. Between the job termination, the professional review, and the mounting legal pressure, Marcus filed for personal bankruptcy 4 months and 11 days after my engagement party. Vanessa's situation unraveled more slowly but no less completely. The letter to her mother did not produce an immediate break. Families are complicated, and her mother loved her. But what it produced was a conversation that cracked open something that had been carefully sealed for years. Vanessa had told her family an entirely different version of that chapter of her past. When the documented reality became visible, the family gathering that took place shortly after was, by 2 separate accounts from people who were there, one of the most painful things anyone in that room had witnessed. Vanessa moved out of the city within 3 months. I was told she relocated to a different state entirely. Now here is one of the most structurally satisfying parts of this entire story, and I want you to understand that I did not engineer this part. This is simply what happened. After the collapse of both of their lives, Marcus and Vanessa attempted to actually be together. I mean, that was the logical destination, wasn't it? They had sacrificed 2 relationships, 15 years of friendship, professional standing, and family trust, presumably because what they had was worth it. They lasted 11 weeks as a couple. A mutual acquaintance told me the relationship ended in a way that was, apparently, very loud and very public. It turns out that when the foundation of something is built entirely on shared betrayal, it has absolutely nothing left to stand on once the pressure is removed. I want to be transparent with you, I do not track these people. I have no interest in monitoring their lives. But information travels on its own, and here is what has reached me. Marcus is working a contract drafting position at a level well below where he was when this began. The professional record from the billing investigation followed him through his industry. Vanessa has, from what I understand, rebuilt something in another city. I genuinely have no particular feeling about that. I do not want her destruction, I never did. I simply wanted the truth to exist in the world and for the people it concerned to live inside that truth rather than outside it. And me. I want you to hear this part clearly. I did not spend a single day of this process consumed by hatred. Anger is an expensive emotion. It costs you focus, sleep, and time that you cannot recover. I processed what happened. I addressed it with precision. I documented, executed, and then I let it go. 18 months after the night of that engagement party, I am living in a different city, working a role I genuinely enjoy, and I say this without performance, happy. Not in spite of what happened. Partly because of it. Because what it clarified about who I am and what I will not accept from the people in my life was worth more than any engagement party. The lesson I want to leave with you is not about revenge. I know most people hear this story and file it under revenge. It does not belong there. This is a story about information, patience, and the decision not to react until you fully understand what you are reacting to. The people who betrayed me spent 8 months constructing something on a foundation of lies. It took me 4 weeks and 4 specific, measured, entirely legal actions to bring that structure down completely. Patience is not weakness. Patience is not passivity. Patience is what happens when you are angry enough to take the situation seriously and disciplined enough to do it right. I also want to address something that a portion of you are already thinking right now. Was this too far? Let me walk through what I actually did. I forwarded documented evidence of financial fraud to the organization being defrauded. I sent a certified legal demand for money that was genuinely owed and documented. I informed family members of factual, public record information about someone in their family. I sent truthful written notifications to people who deserved to understand why a major life event connected to them had been cancelled. Not one action was fabricated. Not one was illegal. I did not destroy their lives. Their choices did. I simply made sure those choices had consequences in the real world. If you watched this entire story, truly watched it, then you understand something that most people skip over in these situations. The justice that actually holds is never the kind you see in the movies. There are no screaming confrontations. No public scenes. No dramatic gestures. It is methodical. It is built on truth, timing, documentation, and an absolute refusal to allow the people who wronged you to define the narrative. That is the version of justice that does not unravel. That is the version that follows people into the next chapter of their lives because it is grounded in reality. If this story found you today, if it touched something real in your experience, I need you to do 3 things right now. Hit the like button so this story reaches the people who need to hear it. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss what comes next on this channel. And drop a comment right now with the single word karma and tell me, what would you have done differently? I read every single comment personally. Every one. This is Karma Vault Stories. New videos every single week. And I will see you in the next one.